once you arrived here in the district. The floor is yours.
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about some exciting things that we're doing, both in a big picture basis and just fun on the, if you're in the business of moving dirt around and building stuff with concrete and all that kind of stuff, this is pretty exciting. So I thought what I do is just kind of give a little history, sort of what has happened to date and sort of how we got to where we are. Where are we today? And then sort of what we anticipate going forward. And so the state level started looking at student housing as something that they got very interested at community colleges. I'm not sure exactly what the genesis of all that is. I'm suspecting that part of it is just that there's been obviously homelessness is a huge issue, and then just a lack of housing stock is a huge issue, and affordable housing and how it's difficult to go ahead and find affordable housing. And I wouldn't be surprised if somehow in the future we find historians looking at this, was that some smart person in Sacramento said, hey, there's like 2 million students in the California community college system. If let's say we got half of them into student housing, that's 1 million people not in the market competing and maybe potentially bidding up rental rates and so forth, particularly in certain community which college communities tend to be very desirable areas. So again, not sure what the genesis is, but all of a sudden there became this great focus and desire to explore and fund student housing for community colleges, which is a major strategic shift from the California 1960, strategic education plan that set up the UC system, Cal State system, and the California community college system. It was specifically set up as a community college, not as a residential. So a few colleges have already gone in and built some student housing. But all of them have built basically market rate. It's been just to address the lack of housing stock, such as like Napa College, where they had the fires up there and they lost so much of the housing stock, they just needed to build space. And so, but they weren't looking to go ahead and make it below market or anything like that. Just no matter what you were willing to pay, it just wasn't enough space. Fast forward, the state legislature went ahead and passed AB and FB 169, which set aside a significant amount of money, a couple of $1 billion for new student housing, some of it for Cal States and UCs, and then about $1 billion for the college system. And City College was way out in front, and well before I got here, had started the process of doing 2 grants. One was a grant for planning and a feasibility study, and the other one was for construction. And I remember one of the first things that President Shabazz asked me after I got here was, hey, we never heard why we didn't get the construction grant, but City College did get the $344,000 planning program feasibility grant. And when I asked the state chancellor's office, what they said was that City College was automatically not even considered, but just qualified for the construction grant because we had been awarded the planning grant. The logic there is that if you need to be doing the feasibility and planning, you're not ready to do the constructing. Therefore, we're going to give constructing grants to those who are kind of shovel ready.
After they encouraged us.
After they encouraged you. But it turned out to be a smart thing, because what happened then was, it's funny how if you go and tell people, hey, we have $1 billion to give away, who wants this money, put in some applications for the grant. Suddenly out of the 116 community colleges, 73 community college districts, that $1 billion doesn't go far. Especially when you look at a typical student housing, like what we're considering here, is around $200 million. So not that many $200 million projects fit inside $1 billion pretty quickly. So all of a sudden they're like, we don't have that much money now that the second round of construction grants are coming in. So what they said is those who were denied a construction grant in the first round can submit, but people who didn't submit the first time can't. So you were very smart for having done what you did. And I want to give all the credit to Vice President Parker and to President Sabas and whoever else is involved in that process. And I know some of my team, Lance LaRoe in particular, was involved. So the final programming process went through. It involved over 5,000 students here at City in terms of surveying to understand what was the need, et cetera, and sort of what was the affordability that they could have, what was the demographics that we had. And one of the things that came out is that about 78% of City College students are what we call single students. They are not have family members that are dependent on them. And so in terms of housing wise, they would be sort of single occupant, single student. So with our having done the planning and programming, talked with all the stakeholders, come together, and I think it's SGPA architects who then came out with the report, and we also hired them to do the construction grant application. That application was due January 25th of 2023, and we made sure that we got in and made the deadline, even though they put a last minute change literally 2 weeks before the students say that our board had to review it and approve it. We put in for a conceptual design of a building that would cover sort of, think of it as like a digital figure 8, a rectangle with a bifurcation on the block that the old Child Development Center is on. It would be about, because the ground slopes there would be 7 and 8 stories. And the reason we want to do that is because, and I know some of you, when we did the design application.
This is the main reason why he's here. Take notes for this.
The original planning and programming, they required you to put like a rendering of what you did. So this is sort of like saying, I want you to submit, you're going to go and have set up a meeting with a fertility specialist because you and your partner are thinking of having a child. One of the things you have to do is submit a photo of your child when they're 18. And you'd be kind of like, we haven't even decided, we're kind of exploring. And so this is a feasibility study. And so it showed this like high-rise condominium type of a thing out one end of that block. And people talked about, we could maybe do a market rate on the other end and have a bunch of retail and all these kind of things. And that all sounded kind of good, but when it came down to it, what we realized is that in construction code, you have something that's called a high-rise requirements triggering. So anything that goes above 80 feet, you then have to go and turns into what's called a type 1 building, which means it has to be all steel. Adds about 40 to 50% increase in construction costs versus something that's below that. So if we want to create, and our goal here is to create the first ever community college affordable student housing. So the construction grant we applied for was to support affordable student housing based on sort of federal price points of what meets requirements, sort of mid 900s a month per bed type of a requirement. So we did that, but we have a plan that we think we can effectuate that we could end up potentially at maybe $600 a bed for a monthly rental rate. The average market rate for like an efficiency apartment in San Diego is in the $1,800 to $2,400 a month. I think so. That tells you the difference. And the dorm rates for like at Cal State San Diego is $1,600 to $1,800. So again, it kind of tells you what we're trying to do is something really exciting. So the idea is that we would have about over 800 units or beds in this. It's going to be focused on single student, non-family housing. Part of that is not because we have a hard heart towards our students who have families that they are supporting and living with, but we want to maximize the probability that we're going to get some kind of funding from the state. The more funding we get, the better we're able to go ahead and bring affordability to our students. And nothing succeeds like success. So if we can get a successful project done, then that helps us to then move on to having then family student housing and maybe ultimately affordable employee housing. And those are things that we're looking at long term. So that's sort of what we're going to talk next. But currently, we've submitted the application for $75 million. I know you're kind of saying, wait a minute, didn't you just say it was going to be like 200 million? That doesn't go very far. Another reason that we did that is because one of the rubrics that the state is using for when they would award a project is what they can give themselves credit for how many beds they help create. So if 75 million state money, they can claim that they generated 800 beds. That's better than if we ask for 200 million that generates 800 beds. They can take more credit that the state dollars went generated more kinds of housing. So we wanted to stack the deck that way. A third component that we also played on how we want to do this is that projects were very heavily weighted in scoring on those that were going to be able to get started by the end of this calendar year, by December of 2023. And people will be like, there's no way. I mean, it takes 8 months to get through DSA. You're not going to, the Division of State Architects, how would you do that? How did you, did you just kind of out and out line the application, say, yes, of course we can do that? No. Because we have a pre-existing facility, that's the Child Development Center, that must be demolished. And we'll do that, but any construction project, we can talk about that demoing and what's called site preparation is a part of the project. Even if the part that we applied for, the actual construction part, but you have to go ahead and do specialized grading. And when we know what we're going to build, when we do the demo, we can tailor it on how we start doing the demo and grading as part of the demolition project. So in absolute good faith, we could say we're going to have potentially shovels in the ground in June or July or August, because that's when we're going to start the demolition at the CDC. So we tried to do the trifecta of let's go ahead and get as many beds as we possibly can. Let's go ahead and try to make it that the state can claim as many beds per each dollar they gave us. And let's go ahead and say that we're going to be ready to go ahead and move dirt when they give us the money. So we're very hopeful that we get the money. And if we can get at least $30 million, the structure we're looking at would allow us probably to be able to build this and present rental rates at about $600 a month for that. Anything we get above that helps us to have more kind of things. These aren't just beds that we're doing. We're going to have wraparound services. There's study areas, there's laundry facilities, there's bike storage rooms, there's areas where we're going to have food available and other kind of support services, etc. So we'll have a center green space, and we'll have sort of a secured entry so that, again, we can create a community that will then have an envisioned sky bridge to the campus. And so, again, we can create a community that supports, and we're very hopeful that we can make this come across and that we'll use this as a pilot, not just for what's possible here at City College, but then for the district as a whole, as we look at student and family affordable housing and employee affordable housing as well. That's sort of what is. What's going to happen, we anticipate that we'll know if we got any money by hopefully July 1, the new fiscal year. It might take longer. The reason being is the state has allowed a deferment of a longer deadline for tax filings. I think till October, mid-October. Consequently, we're typically by the May budget revise, governor's revise, the state knows about how much revenue it's going to get. It won't really know that until into October. So it may decide to pull its cards for a bit. So we don't know, but we're hopeful. But in any event, we are moving forward with the process of bringing in a private sector partner, and it's called a public-private partnership. Part of the reason why we need to do this no matter what was that, as we talked about, community colleges were set up as commuter college. So unlike Cal States and UCs, when they were getting student housing money and grants from the state, That just covered the construction. They were good with that because they already had a pre-existing infrastructure organization of deans of student life and resident assistants and all these kind of things. And just hire a few more people type of thing. We would have to create this whole organizational infrastructure from scratch. And we don't really have anything to build on. And trying to hire them from other colleges and universities may not adapt very well to the community college demographic and mission that we have and the kind of system that we have. So having a partner that can come in and already running student housing across many different demographics and venues and at other community colleges. So we're in the process right now of selecting that partner through an RFQ process, request for qualifications. But we're going to look at what are the qualifications, how many similar services are they already doing, what kind of financial help do they have, et cetera. And then they can also bring in some of the financing as well. So we anticipate going out and posting this in April and awarding, selecting a partner, hopefully sometime in May, and the board approve it. And we have an outside consultant company, Lazar Development Consultants, that is developing the scoring rubric for the RFQ, and then we'll be the ones who are third-party agnostic folks who will kind of do that scoring and recommendation. So again, we can make sure we're getting the best possible based on expertise that we don't have that much either inside my organization or just anywhere throughout the district. So that's our anticipation, very long-term. We anticipate that we're going to learn a lot from doing and succeeding here at City College with the student life. There's a lot of speculation, liability issues, what's going to happen, how do we manage, rules and so forth. We're going to learn using this as a living laboratory. And we're setting up in such a way that in a worst case scenario, we can kind of spin it out administratively and risk-wise. So it just becomes housing that is on our land that we get revenue from as the landlord. Or if we ever want to in the future and own it outright and have our own infrastructure, manage it programmatically, et cetera, the district and the college can go in that direction as well. But for right now, we'll get real data and we'll be able to make our decisions based on data and the wisdom that you all represent.
Any questions for Joel? And just a recap of what we're thinking about your questions. The takeaway is it's not going to look like the photo, what you all seen in the photo, right? That was a rendering. That is a very important piece. Any questions for Joel about the housing? Yes.
So the question, and I think you might have hit on it, but what we submitted, and it won't look like that. So there's opportunity to have digested that and make some changes in the new proposal?
Yes, so in the application that we did, again, you were required, going forward and saying, we're not, pregnant or decided to actually be parents yet, but we're being required to, submit the first grade photo. So, we've got an artist rendering of a conceptual kind of thing. And that's what we put in. And what we've done is that the programming side, really what that exercise is saying, who, what, how, where, and how many. So we took it, who is doing what kind of things, in what kind of location, and at what scale is what creates then what is the program. And then you say, here are all the kind of options. It's not an infinite universe of possible physical facilities that can meet those mission and programmatic goals. But within that, there's a whole lot of ways to come up with a design. I mean, think of how the variety of single family homes that are some configuration of 3-bedroom, 2-bath meets a program, but can come in all sorts of different configurations, looks, feels, materials, et cetera. So it's wide open. And when we go through the design process, the actual starting of the construction design, there's really 3 phases, what's called schematic design. So most people are familiar with, it looks like the floor plans, the walls kind of go. And we will use all the different user groups and stakeholders to talk about that and to talk about layout and proximity. We each have this next to that. What about these kind of things? And then the next phase is what we call design development, which is to take now creating sort of layout of the rooms and the volumes. But now you got to figure out, how do all the HVAC piping go in? Where do all the piping go? And where's all the structural beams going to happen to do this kind of thing? And then the final part then is that we actually take that fully complex thing and then turn it into a set of what's called construction drawings. So a set that you can just hand the plumbers and they can just go and do the plumbing down to what size screw they use, what location, that kind of thing. And we will have the stakeholders and user groups involved in every stage of the way. So it comes down to things like, not only layout and stuff, but then functionality, sound transmissions, fit and finish, kind of materials, etc. So we want to make sure at the end of the day that you get something that you were hoping for, that you wanted, and that it meets your needs. And your students better than certainly anyone on my team.
The other thing that, unless there's any other questions, I'm gonna spring on Joel because it's good news and I love good news. And I'll ask Janelli to put it on a future agenda and John Parker can update us. But we sent out an email, I believe last week, with some very important information that folks in this room have been advocating for, and it has to do with the cafeteria and our students and colleagues being able to access affordable lunch, dinner options. And in 1 or 2 minutes, can you maybe talk about your efforts, and we can have John on a future agenda item. But in case you missed the email, we actually sent out a flyer that offered some affordable food options. And this is another area I appreciate Joel that he got in there and listened to folks and heard their concerns and immediately offered some possibilities.
So our food services staff had scaled way down during the pandemic, and we had a lot of attrition with early retirements and so forth, and there was an early pension plan, et cetera. And coming out of the pandemic, we weren't able to hire very quickly. All of you know that the hospitality industry is suffering from a labor shortage, and us included, so we can't meet the needs that you had. So what we were providing right now was kind of a breakfast, lunch type of a thing, but we couldn't do services beyond about 2 p.m. We heard loud and clear that you needed services in the afternoon, evening time frame, and that you needed these things to be at a price point that makes sense. So we were able to go ahead and use what was going to be some of my operating budget, but now we got even better good news that we can go and use lottery money to pay for a food truck that will come here Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And that we will be able to, you all will be able to provide vouchers to the students so that they can come there and get a meal free. We'll have certain.
Did you say free?
With a voucher. So it's costing you through your lottery money. But at the same time, we'll also have other items that will cost. So one thing that we're using this of an 11-week pilot at all 3 of the credit colleges, and then we're getting ready to start up at continuing ed. But we're going to start with a fixed menu and sort of fixed price that we kind of see. Then we're going to start adjusting based on the feedback and input from the locations so that we can now get data that says we could do a $20 item and sell it at $2 just to see would they buy? Is it the price that's the issue, or is it the item that's the issue? And so we can get this data, and that will inform us then on going forward basis on some permanent solutions, whether food trucks are part of that, or whether what we do internally or outsource or whatever it might be, that we're going to have real data. But in the meantime, you're going to have the services. They've already started. The food truck is already here.
Free hasn't started yet.
No.
That's coming. It's coming. Thank you again, Joel. Let's give him a round of applause. So we'll add an update on the cafeteria and food services to next college council, which I plan by then to be able to roll out more information on being able to offer students free food during that evening hour. Our new vice chancellor found some resources that have been rolling over, and there are specific things that those lottery funds have to be spent in. One of them are spent on, one of them are basic needs, and food falls into that. So I know sometimes it may feel like we're not moving as quickly or we're not hearing you, but I assure you, when folks bring up concerns, we immediately act on them. And our vice chancellor went to work and found some resources. And so we will be presenting on that. That just learned that this morning, so super excited about that, John, bringing that back. Let's transition to something we should all be excited about. I see our dean is here, Jeannie Tyler, who is over the areas in her school. Maybe it's politically correct way to say. Certainly, I enjoy working with Sean and Bradford. They are industry experts, and a lot of times I'll go to them when we're working on a marketing project. If nothing else, to be able to say Sean and Bradford said, because they really do bring with them a level of expertise that places our students in a program that is nationally known and recognized, and that our students are being prepared to go right into the workforce. Many of them come to Sean and Bradford already having a degree in another area and are coming to get that hands-on experience in our school. And so it is my privilege to say that our graphic design students recently won, was not so much recently, but recent enough, won 17 awards and are ranked number 2 in the nation in their area. A number of those students with us, Sylvia, Wade, Teresa, Melissa, and Alyssa, who are our students and or were our students, are now working in the field because they received a great education. And I don't know if John or Bradford, if you all would like to just speak to this award and the great work you're doing with the students. And if one of the students want to say something, you all are the reason why we're here. So anytime we get to bring a group of students to honor the great work that you all are doing, we want to take advantage of that. So again, congratulations. I know Sean and Bradford, if you all like to share.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rich, for inviting us here, and thank you so much, Jeannie, for your support. And thank you so much. Congratulations to all the students that are here. Teresa, Alyssa, Sylvia, and Melissa, we really appreciate you. Thank you for putting up with Sean through so many endless rounds of revision and feedback. And I hope you know that all the pushing we do to get your work to where it is out of love. And we know that you're going to go out and do amazing things in the industry. So just remember us when you're like design leaders, come back and remember us, say hi, and maybe you can visit the class and try to critique someday. So yeah, it's a great honor, and yeah, we look forward to being number 1 next year. So
Any of the students want to share any words or your experiences? Yes, please.
I do. I'm in my final semester and I'm just blown away. I already have my undergrad. I just can't believe the level of attention that they provide. It's more rigorous than I went to grad school for a while. It's more rigorous than anything I've done. I'm super grateful for being part of the program.
Absolutely. Well, we're grateful for you. Any other thoughts? Any questions from the members of College Council? Jamie's back there raising her hand a little.
The recognition, yes, all props to the faculty and the students. Your faculty share, and I'm just happy to be here. But this is a global recognition. The honor, the number 2 is across the globe, not just national. So it takes it up a level.
Yes.
And thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to echo what Alyssa said too. This has been probably the most attentive, rigorous, above and beyond and beyond and beyond experience that I've had in education. And it's amazing. I'm so grateful.
Last night.
Yeah.
Hey, all.
Yeah. And Bradford and everyone in the graphic design program just been so excellent and so supportive and truly life-changing.
I just want to also quickly thank the foundation and our partners who donate to our program. These awards are expensive to enter, and some of our partners like Qualcomm and our alums who donate money to that account is really what helps make that possible, and also the foundation. Very grateful that the foundation has been supportive of us supporting our students. Thank you all.
Great, thank you. Let's give them another round of applause. They were also featured in our recent newsletter, and so anytime we have an opportunity to share the successes that our students, our faculty, classified professionals, everyone at our college achieves, we want to bring that forward. And normally the students receive some level of communication from me, whether it be a City College T-shirt. We tried to give them a scholarship, but many of them had already moved on, so it didn't work out the way that I had hoped. But we absolutely want to acknowledge your great work, and you all represented our college and yourselves, your families, and communities very well. So congratulations again. And speaking of that, I invited another group to come in 2 weeks, but I just wanted to highlight, for those of you who may not follow me on social media, please feel free to do so. I brag about the college there all the time, and there's another reason to brag, not to mention the basketball team making it to the playoffs. I got to go to Fullerton over the weekend. Unfortunately, we lost. Caesar and I were in the game, but it was a great game. But our Hulu students, led by our own ASG president, Diego, participated in a Knowledge Bowl competition as part of the main conference, and they won the competition. And let's give them a round of applause. I invited them to come to the next meeting. Certainly want to shout out Kaylin and Bianca, who assist from the college with the students who participated. They were the talk of the conference, and I don't want to steal the thunder, but you're talking about nearly 1,300 people were at that conference. The City College students all had a City College jacket, and every one of the 14 college presidents that were there came up to me and said, "We see you, City College, and our students will have jackets next year." And so we'll invite those students to come in 2 weeks. But since Diego here, just wanted to say, in my 25 years of doing this work, those were the best group of students that I had ever been around in a similar kind of competition. And so you all represented the college and yourselves very well. So thank you to those students. Moving along, we have all of the vice presidents with an update on hiring. And thank you all for coming. Nice to see you all. John, you want to take it?
Yeah, certainly. It would be sharing.
Yes.
You have the blue one, right?
Yes.
So Janelle is going to share the document online. You all should have received this in email as well.
All right, thank you for bringing this up, Janelle. So this is one of several docs that we use internally. To preface it here, we have about 3, and there was a previous iteration that was circulated, so please disregard that. That's that one we use internally. We use that one to inform and feed into this spreadsheet. And we also have another one that we use for both spreadsheets. So it's a very manual process, but this one is the one that we want to present to constituencies because it's just cleaner and it's simpler to explain, and it's easier on the eye. So the far left column, those are the completed recruitments, and year to date, thus far, we have, now this is this fiscal year. When I say year to date, there are 36 that we have completed hiring. Now this goes back, our internal document goes back to last fiscal year, that's July of 2021. And since then, we've hired 54 people. So of the 54, 36, the majority of them are this year, starting in July 1st, 2022, the last 9 months or so. The middle is the in recruitment. These are all the positions right now in various parts of the recruitment, of which there are 44 currently. So it could be in PGF, it could be posted, interviews, it could be going through screening the applications. That's part of the recruitment. If it's posted or the PGF is started, that is recruitment all the way up until background check and accepting the offer and start date. So again, various levels of the recruitment. And did you want to jump in here?
Yes, and maybe you were going to get there, and if you were, I apologize. But you said the raw number. Can you break it down? Because we just had a forum with our classified professionals.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge that we absolutely heard you all, Sean, and there is a need to clarify the process for classified, which is different and will always be different than the hiring prioritization process for faculty, but if you could give the breakdown in terms of position.
Classified, man.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have that. The far right column is the pending, and then we just have two there, so that's easy, and that will start at some point. So then going to the middle column, Ricky was just alluding to in terms of, actually, let's go to completed. I'm sorry, we'll go to the completed thus far. The end recruitment, actually, we have both, so let me follow up on the completed first. The completed, going back for the last year and a half or so of 54, 20 are classified.
Did you say 20?
20 are classified.
I want to get that number out there.
20 are faculty, 20 are faculty.
Wow, 20 faculty and 20, what are the chances of that?
Very good. And 11 management and 3 spot. 20 classified, 20 faculty, 11 management, 3 spot. And recruitment currently, we have, now this includes the pending. So we have 18 classified, 19 faculty, 5 management, and 4 spot.
That's a lot of hiring, folks, and what John is also going to do is email to Sean and Xenia, the hiring, what we call,
No, you can interject.
what is called the PJF, right? So there is a need for everyone to share with our classified professionals that there is absolutely a hiring process for classified professionals. It involves using the document, it's called a PJF. If you go into the college's website, you can either just type in planning, the business office, or you can type in PJF and the document will come up. Or you can just merely go to your supervisor or your manager and they would gladly, or email John, he would gladly, or any of the vice presidents, they would gladly give you a PJF, which is the primary document that you use for hiring anyone. The difference is that document is the starting point for classified professionals or a manager. For the faculty, and I'll pivot to Tilly, the starting process is the faculty prioritization process. And Tilly, if you'll provide an update, and Janelle, you can go to that form.
Well, before you do, it's okay. I did want to cut a couple of things, and one, I want to hit on the PJF, that just because you get a PJF doesn't mean that you're going to get a position. Just because you have a PJF doesn't mean that you have a position. It's the beginning part of requesting of what might be needed. We have to have a line available for that, right? So it has to be able to be, I just want to clear that. And then the other thing is on what we sent out, I just wanted to clarify, there was the vacancy list sent out by accident, which is our background one. So I think John's going to work on recalling that one back. I just wanted to throw that out. When Janelle gets a moment, she will pull up the faculty hiring prioritization, and I see that Suna just walked in as well. This one is color coded, so when you see the color coding one, I don't know if it's with your packets or not, has a lot of green, it looks like the column as well. So this one here, this is the faculty hiring prioritization that was developed for spring 2022 to fall 2023. This is developed by our faculty, particularly our chairs, and they go through a process. It's been kind of changing over the years, and they're still looking at how that might look this next coming year. They come up with a list, and they provide this list for us to say, hey, these are what we believe are the priority order of hiring faculty. And then there's a whole bunch of words on the next side of that, which basically goes through how the process works. And then there's a space in there that if we are to veer, and I say we, meaning me, myself as a recommendation, or the president, us as administrators say, we're going to veer from that because something came up, whatever that might be. So when this was developed, even though it was for spring of 2022, this was created in the fall of 21. We were in the pandemic, but I'm just going to say that I didn't really understand what that meant at that moment in time. I didn't realize myself that we were going to be getting retirement after retirement.
The great resignation.
Checks that we've never ever seen before. And I think people that made this list never kept that in mind either, right? We didn't have that really idea. And I just say that because so many things have come up. And I hope that Suno's really good and she's organized and she's taking note of all the different things that have happened since then going, we gotta add that to the prioritization. Not that I am saying that, I'm just saying that those are things that I've noticed. So needless to say, on this list, there were a total of 36 items on here at the beginning. And then we color coded, the green are all the ones that we have hired. On 18, 19, and 20, they are bolded. Those are the next recommended on the list to go. I'm gonna come back to the 2 in yellow, the librarian positions. Those 2 positions are on the other side of 50%. They are not instructional positions. So kind of what I mentioned about classified, we can't replace an instructional position with a non-instructional. We get in trouble and we can lose positions and other things in funding, et cetera. So I just wanted to give that explanation. So where we are now is 18, 19, and 20 are actually moving forward. They've just signed off almost all on their PJFs to move forward and go into recruitment. The next 3 positions should be available are 21, 22, and 23. That's just right off the list. However, when you go to the bottom of the list, Janelle, and go to the turquoise ones, it had come to my attention, and again, sometimes the things that come to me may not really be what's out there happening, so this is why there's a process. I made a recommendation because we had 6 positions of people retiring. So I had made the recommendation of putting forward a business position, that is one. The faculty had all ended up retiring in June, and there were no replacements for them. They didn't do a succession planning in the past. It was not thought about prior to that. And that is one of our biggest producers of efficiency. Productivity is really high in those classes, so they kind of help us in that piece of it. So it was one of the first positions. Then there was an engineering position that had retired, and so I put it forward as well to try to replace that one. And cosmetology, it's the second position within 6 months. We really can't run our Cosmo program totally on adjuncts and just 2 faculty. So I had put those 3. The information I received was those would be the next 3 for recommendation. I took this to instructional cabinet last week, and number 18, 19, and 20 were not a problem. Those moved forward. 38, 39, and 40 became a little bit issue. They wanted to do some research and wanted to think about that. And it does say in paperwork here that give us 2 weeks to look at it. Well, they happen to be having a chair academy on Monday, the 13th. So I'm told on Monday, the 13th, we will know whether these 3 in blue move forward or something else on the list is recommended. So that is how that discussion and conversation goes. Questions about this?
Can I add just a couple of things, and Kelly did a wonderful job describing it. There's just one other, I believe, very important thing about cosmetology that is worth noting for the record. And that is when we come to the chairs in the past, cosmetology has volunteered their position up twice, right? And I feel strongly that having done that should weigh into the consideration that they are now hurting. Our cosmetology program went from being one of the largest in the region to being very impacted by the loss of a chair and another full-time faculty member. There are folks who have varying opinions on the amount of money that someone can make doing cosmetology. I don't know about you all, but it costs me $50 every time I get a haircut, and I get one sometimes 3 times a month. The other thing I would say is that our students, the students we serve, if you look at where they would have to go for cosmetology, And the cost, for me, this is a social justice matter. That if we have to get our cosmetology program back to where it was, because the alternative of where students are going, Paul Mitchell, just Google it. Google what a person would pay to go to Paul Mitchell versus coming to San Diego City College. There's also this very interesting relationship, and I just thought of this, between business and cosmetology, because the former dean integrated the two to say, look, if we're going to train you in cosmetology, we want to prepare you to be an entrepreneur and possibly open your own shop. So those cosmetology students aren't just taking cosmetology classes, they're taking other classes across the college. So we're talking about a program who could feasibly have 200, 300 students going through it that does not have that number now. And so I was trying to figure out how I can say what I'm going to say next, more politically correct. But ultimately, what's pointed out on this list is that it's a recommendation to the president. And I have only had to make one other tough decision, which really wasn't wasn't tough for me. And that was the hiring of a Native American Studies professor that was not on the list at the time. I rely heavily on the recommendations of the Vice President of Instruction, as well as the chairs. There's always this perceived winners and losers when you have a list. I'll also say, if I could, Tilly, that we went to the librarians and offered them the ability of turning one of these library faculty members into an instructional librarian. They chose not to. We are floating around 51%, 50. I think the last time we checked, it was 50 point something %, which gets us in a lot of financial trouble if we don't achieve the 50% law as stated by a code in the state of California. Just a couple things to add to what Tilly said. She did a great job. Any questions about this? And Sean, if you could take this back to the class, that's what makes this more complicated. The other thing that makes this complicated is that the majority of these positions are GFU. We absolutely know that we have faculty members who are hired on GFR, largely counselors, but not exclusive to counselors. And this list is static, right? It's developed one day and the next day is out of alignment with what's going on right now. And I presented to the faculty and they, they declined an option of considering in this list the impact of retirements. Because in my prior college, they had like a flow chart. If this happens, you hire. If this happens and this doesn't happen, you don't hire. And I continue to make an appeal to the faculty leadership that we need to strongly consider the effects of retirements, lest you have problems like cosmetology, where you go from having 500 or 600 students to having a program that's struggling because it had at the same time, and these are anomalies, right? You don't normally have everybody in the department or 2 or 3 people in the department retire, but when you do, we need to take those things into consideration. Questions or
I'll just follow up. I know Sunan can speak up as well, but the faculty, the chairs are really been talking about different opportunities that you mentioned as well. So we have a new group of chairs and it might look differently, right? Sunan on the phone, maybe no, I don't know. I can't hear it.
Yeah, we're in the process of reviewing, we're in the process of reviewing the process. So we have a committee who is, I'm reading out emails, responses from them. Things have been a little hectic over the last 2 days, so I imagine I'll get a response by the end of the week. But the goal is to have a couple of meetings and to have the process on the chair's end put forward as here's what we would like, and then to pull in Tilly and some deans, and obviously working with Susan to finalize the process for the next round. The goal is literally to see what worked last time, see what needs changing in the process, do that this year, then next year we'll do the new faculty hiring prioritization, and then the following year we'll review again and say,
is this process still serving us? Do we need to add things? Do we need to take things away? So that's where we're at.
And that makes sense, Sudha, because if you look at the list, and this is the thing I feel obligated to comment on. The majority of the people we hire are off the list, right? The majority, but it's those that are not on the list or when we skip over a position that presents the biggest opportunity for a discussion. But the vast majority of the people who we hire come directly from this list. And I feel obligated to just continue to bring that to the forefront. You're talking about nearly 20 faculty members. You heard John's number, I think it's going to be 38 in total when it all settles, which adds to the opportunity as a college to reshape the work that's going on with the mission and other efforts that are underway on campus. Any other comments or questions about hiring? So the takeaway, I hope you will share with your constituencies, the members that you work with, where to find these documents on the college's website, how to actually hire someone. Program review plays a big part of this as well, that the position is listed in program review, and we continue to be excited about the number of people. We are offering opportunities to join our San Diego City College family. Moving to the next item on the agenda, unless there's anything else about that, it's also John Parker and the Vice President with an update on the State Block Grant 2. This is my fault, Janelle, and we own that. This will be the first read, and we do need a vote, but we didn't put this as a vote, and I didn't realize that until I read the document. Like, we'll vote on this, so this will go back on the next agenda. And really what we're voting on is that we share the information with you. Each of the vice presidents have their own respective processes in their areas to disseminate this money, and that's what they're going to go over today. John, you want to start us off?
Sure, thank you. Do you mind blowing that up a little bit for those who may not be able to see it? Who may or may not wear glasses. So this is a draft. And what you'll see here is at the top is that should be 3.7, but it's $3.7 million. We have $1 million for instruction, 700,000 for student services, administrative services, and the president's office. The process for determining these allocations is that the division VP work with their respective departments and prioritize these for the respective departments and divisions and coming up with a preliminary budget, which is what you see here. There is a contingency, you'll know, in each of the divisions, and the contingency is an asterisk, which I have at the bottom of this. You don't need to put it down, but it is essentially uncommitted funds that are reserved for unexpected expenses outside of these allocations, which we had many of those in the past 3 years. They're just set aside, rainy day funds, if you will. And it's a good thing because we've been able to tap into them, and oftentimes we've had to reallocate from other departments based on the need. For student computers is another one. We're ordering 300 students for laptops, to check out laptops. So again, operative word being unexpected. So these aren't contingencies that are committed, they're set aside, and we'll prioritize them. So we'll receive a request right away. We may receive a request at the 11th hour as we get closer to the deadline. Now we have 3 years to spend this down. It's not like our HERS, all of our HERS, which will expire this June, which we have started closing out already at the beginning of this calendar year in January. So that'll take us to June of fiscal year 24-25. We're counting this year. So there are 2 years remaining for the state block funds. EPs, did you want to?
If I could jump in on a couple of things, I have. Just get stand from back there. I just wanted to take a look and a couple of things that are on this one under instructional. Line number 8 says 200,000 for retention efforts. I want to be clear, this is not the same funding that Ricky has been advertising on the enrollment management. These retention efforts are different for instruction. Some of the things that there's money there set aside, and a lot of mine and Marciano will mirror each other, kind of do it together. This is for, remember when we took a walk over by the hallway in John's area where we have that nice big mural on the wall, right? We want to do that to some of the instructional buildings as well, bring that type of stuff to the white spaces that you have. So some of that funds right there is for that kind of retention efforts, and then other retention efforts. But I want to clarify, it says 200,000. I thought people were going to think, oh, that's the money that Ricky talked about in enrollment management. This is different. I just wanted to point that one out. I also wanted to point out that line number 9 is 150,000 over 3 years. Those are the online mentoring tools faculty are using for Turnitin, Canvas, all those types of things that we partner with the district. So when you look at that, it's also a piece of the whole. Marcion, do you want to say anything about CCAP?
Yeah,
Because we both have it.
I'm gonna do my next, wasn't gonna get to it, but get
Okay.
to mine, so, you'll see CCAP in both Tilly's and I's. And, part of the reason is because if you look at one of the 4 pillars that we're talking about, enrollment management, that CCAP, growing CCAP is really one of those strategies. And so we both committed, money in ours to be able to figure out how do we come from life into CCAP and really try and grow that. So you'll see the CCAP in both of ours.
And then if I can go right back up to number 12, the 33, my contingency funds. I'm going to give you an example for contingency. So, and Ricky said, what is that earlier today? Thought Farmer, you probably all know, what's a Thought Farmer? I said the same thing. But Thought Farmer is the company that works for the intranet, right? And so we recently, Ryan and I are working behind the scenes to get Thought Farmer moving forward so we can continue 2 years for Thought Farmer. So it's under contingency funds. You wouldn't see that normally, but that's kind of where that piece came. That's just an example of where that might come from. So I just wanted to share that. If you have others, go ahead.
Yeah, so on mine, again, you look at the retention efforts, so a lot of the up to $200,000 in retention efforts. CCAP I already talked about. Our STEM project that we talked about, we talked about our STEM project. We were working with creating our pathways from CE to city. And so we put some money in doing that. So that's a partnership with Masa and the work that he's doing with the credit NCAL, non-credit alignment project or lab. And then we have things in there like as we're thinking about our retention efforts, study jams, priority registration events. We did some in the fall and this past spring with groups that had priority registration invited into the campus, and we worked with Clarissa and all the ambassadors in the Welcome Center to do some targeted things for them. So those are in there. We're trying to give some help again with some NANCE to help with our retention efforts. And then like Tilly, the signage in the different areas. We've got some student engagement mini grants that'll be for our units to apply for. Some PD, we put some in there. We put $25,000 towards open house. So again, we wanted to make sure that we are committed to some of the things, the high yield activity that we were already kind of doing. And then like Tilly, the BPSS contingency fund, which is really all the other projects that we know are coming. And because we have up to 3 years to do this, we've got some time.
And I just wanted to add on Tilly's, but this has been revised, and the only difference is on Tilly's and instruction right there. You were good at the top, Janelle. Is you also added a line for math jams.
Yeah, thank you.
Proctoring,
Thank you. That was
35,000. Yeah, so that 30, you'll have 35,000 for proctoring and math jams, which will come out of, which will decrease your contingency. So if you just want to scroll down, and I can just review the president's office and administrative services. Administrative services and support and equipment for 200,000. Facilities and space planning 150. And we really want to update the campus signage, wayfinding signage, as Tilly was just explaining, all the attention. Mural skins on walls for retention efforts. That's a part of, yeah, skins. At 50,000 for campus events with a $200,000 contingency for the president's office. We have marketing, institutional research, marketing, 150,000. Institutional research, 100, academic senate, 100,000.
Oh, price is above these, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is the, it's not the revised one, but the same data.
Yeah.
Is 50,000 for AH Furniture. Thank you, President Shabazz, for donating some of your contingency to the AH Furniture. We're working.
One that I missed is under the contingency for construction, Ricky, since you had put the AH, you would ask about some furniture in the MS. I was gonna pull that out of the instruction as well for the contingency. But some of the benches and stuff, so students don't sit on the floor. Take lessons from AH.
Questions? Questions?
I can put it in the chat. You said money for math gems, but am I hearing, is it maybe study gems or is it specifically math only?
Study gem for mine, math gem for hers.
Okay.
And also with the math gems, those have also been part of the funds that paid for the proctoring center over the past couple of years, so I'd like to continue to do that as well.
And the other thing I think is important, right, because there are so many new people in our district and in our college. It's important to know, like, how does this work, right? So the college has both general fund and general fund restricted funds. Those general fund, this would fall into general fund restricted, which means it has to be spent on very specific things. If you go to the very new business landing page, there is the document that lists all the general fund restricted funds to include this state block grant, which has very specific things, which is why it does not go through a normal allocation process for the college. However, what the vice presidents do is comb through the program review to determine what things fit the allowable use of this. And then that's where the her request form will come into play in terms of these contingencies and these monies flowing down to the department or program level. Questions? So this will come back for a formal vote in the next college council. Certainly, you can reach out to the vice presidents or myself if you have specific questions. That academic senate, just like we did with PERF 1, 2, and 3, we'll see an allocation there. We can talk about the allowable uses of those funds in our Thursday meetings. That'll give you some time to look at the document on the budget landing page that goes over some of the allowable uses. John, you want to maybe high level allowable uses of these funds?
Sure, the allowable uses as described and outlined by the Department of Education are in instructional equipment primarily. We've been using a lot of ours for technology, textbooks, platform. We've actually have various platforms from eSARS, the Tutor 24/7, the Shine, the Motomatic, and a couple of others. I think Starfish is in there as well. We can use it for professional development, retention, and marketing efforts. Equipment, we've used it for. I told the lie where I can, but I'm going to be the one that's audited with the Department of Education. So if I think it's something that's not so black and white, I'll seek their approval first, which we have done in many instances, because I'm a huge advocate. But more than I've gone back and forth, I think we did 6 months on one of them with the Department of Education. They kept saying, no, I kept pushing back. They finally approved it with the right justification.
If I can too, thank you, Maria, for saying too, it's like, it's nice to see how we collaborated and worked together. If you really look at some of those areas, like especially Marciano, like, we just did chunks. Because so many things could go under, under, you know, like retention, right? You just come and show me, one comes over and says, Tilly, I've got this project I'm working on, and this is how I'm gonna show retention. Okay, you put it in there, you go through your dean first. So get your form, put it in, and then we go through that process, right? I mean, so I just wanted to kind of walk that back through. The idea was probably when we first started this a couple of years ago was so much more detail. Now we've realized it's the bigger for us, it's a little bit easier to try to see what fits in that area. And then if we need to move some of that money to be flexible, and really, I really like it when Marciano said, Tilly has math gyms, I have the study gyms, what we're really trying to do is complement each other so that we're covering all of the student needs in every way we can. What did that Clarissa call that, Dibs?
Dibs, doesn't benefit.
Because the benefits, so that's what, we're really after. Anyway, sorry, I had to.
No, that's good, because you were touching on that. Ricky was reminding me to delineate between HERF and the retention and outreach, and you started on that. So it's any program or event that we can tie back to student retention, outreach, and success qualifies. I couldn't give you a litany of lists because it is pretty wide range. But if we can tie it back to those specific programs or services or events or supplies. Yeah, Mona, I'm sorry, you had a
Yeah,
question.
so what I'm hearing you say is that there will be some wiggle room for like departments or programs to ask for funds for specific purposes that fit within. So like if the English department says, hey, we really need a printer, or some kind of instructional supplies above and beyond what we usually get, would there be an opportunity to ask for those funds, and who would be asking for them? Would Jeannie have to do it, or would faculty be able to do it through Jeannie? Always goes to your dean.
Dean has to
Yeah.
run a form job.
Now we're continuing, and I'll bring it up, we'll use the same HERF form for that, and it's called the HERF form, but it'll be for the same purpose, for the state block funds.
So an email has already gone out to the campus, several of them about these funds, right? So this is where it's very important that we share this information here, that you take it back in your constituency groups. A third email will go out that explains the parameters and the steps to apply for these funds. Most of this, though, is very different than HERF, right? These funds have to be spent on retention and enrollment. And marketing is a byproduct of that. So a printer, just to use it as an example, wouldn't be allowable use of these funds. However, in this, just using that as an example, I know it was, the deans still have their normal department budgets to be able to support other needs that may be above and beyond how these funds can be used. And I just want to state again for the record, this is the state block funding specifically for retention, enrollment, and outreach. And so that it has to go back to that particular area in order to be funded. And you see large blocks of money. All of the deans have received extensive training, communication on these funds, and should know how to access them if and when they receive requests.
Thanks for helping delineate with that and reminding me as well. Can we bring up the website real quick? And what I wanted to start with on the website as we're bringing it up is to point out the position justification form real quick before we go to the budget planning phase that we're talking about, which we've added under the HR forms, under administrative services. It's also available on the district website where we want it easily accessible for our campus community here. So this is administrative. You just type in administrative services and you'll be able to click on it. It'll take you to this page, and the business forms, HR forms, right there in the middle is the PJF. That is the link to the PDF to complete the PJF. If you could go to the upper right, Janelle, and click on budget planning. This is the new page that we just created. Provides tons of resources and tools and information regarding the budget planning process, regarding the adopted budget timeline, our adopted budget, the state's budget, and the allocation process, resource allocation formula on down the line here. We have a Q&A that's a working, FAQ that's a working process, in addition to city college grants, which Ricky alluded to. Those are GFR funds that we're going to have a list of those. We're also going to add another drop-down menu. We're receiving a lot of questions. We have a lot of new deans and managers that don't quite know the funds that they're managing. We'll have a list of funds by department and by budget manager, in addition to a cheat sheet for the most common object codes that we use that'll help folks to fill out their request form, their travel authorization, cash sheets to support that budget manager. all of the funds that they're responsible for. Can you scroll down just a little bit more here? I want to point out that we also added under the HERF, if you just click on the HERF drop down, these include the MSI, these forms, PDF forms here include all of the approved HERF 1, 2, and 3 requests, the MSI allocations, I'm sorry, the MSI allocations and the state block that we just reviewed as well. So if you want to click on the HERF 3, please. And it went through the same process. It says draft. Is that 3?
Yes.
Okay, that might need to be updated because I have on the HERF 3, and I'll include it. This is a quick fix. It has a date that it was approved by College Council under the amount. So HERF 2 and 3 were approved by College Council with those dates. I'll make sure that these are updated. And also, if you want to go back out to the webpage, the HERF request form, is that at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can click on the HERF request form, should you need access, again, it does say HERF, but we're using it for the state block. Same form, nothing's changed on it. We just added it to the website under HERF.
And this is the process that John just outlined in terms of how you access these resources if you are interested in doing so. And I'm going to jump here real quick, generally, if you can go back to the budget planning page and scroll up, there is the one that says general fund restricted. If you ever, and click on that link, if you ever want to know what's allowable, unallowable for every one of the colleges, general fund restricted, or any other college in the state, that form is, this is the document. This is the document that goes over EOPS, ESPS, any one of the restricted allocations to include the state block grant that we're talking about is listed here with the college's allocation. And so thank you, Maria Jose, for pushing us. Advocating. For advocating.
And partner.
This is really good work. Thank you.
Any questions, comments about the specific agenda item, which is the state block grant for outreach and retention? And let's list it that way next time for the actual vote that will go on at the next meeting. That this is the state block grant for outreach, retention, enrollment. Yes.
I mean, just because words do matter, so if somebody can very quickly change on the form, the block grant, just to be more clear, because I'm concerned that can create confusion if it says HERF and it's really for a different grant.
Request.
Yeah, the request form, and it says CARES request bond, which I find that also confusing, so maybe it could be separated or just say block grant request form, so it's a lot easier for people to navigate and see what they need to do.
And we certainly could do that.
Change of words.
Yeah, what we thought we were doing, and we'll do that, it's very easy to do, is that we're essentially using the same request form for all of these funding sources. But we'll make that
Or
change.
maybe put grant and, for grant funding in general, but it's later.
Yeah, I agree, because I think back to take them a look at that and I'm like, wait, what?
We're on it.
And then you're just gonna put a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Changing it is just gonna.
Once we're not, there's no more. It's about.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
Thank you for all the work you put into that. I know that wasn't easy, and it's actually very easy to navigate, and has a lot of good information. So I do encourage everybody, if you're interested in budget and how the college works and how it processes everything, this webpage is a really good place to kind of learn more and how it works and to see the numbers if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Very transparent.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of work. And I want to thank Caesar and his team for helping expedite it as well. This will be a living document that we're going to be updating almost on a weekly basis. I'm going to be sending my announcements out or updates on a monthly basis now rather than twice a semester. And I'll highlight any changes and updates to that.
Thank you.
While we're on budget, can you talk about fiscal close?
Oh, yes, thank you. So we're in fiscal close now. We actually started it, but the official timeline came out from district yesterday. You may have seen the communication that Roxanne sent out last night. We're starting that process, and we'll be sending it in several iterations in terms of.
What is that process?
In terms of which,
What is it? What is it? If I mean, if I, you know, you deal with this all day, every day. What is this?
yeah, closing out, travel authorizations, purchase orders, rolling over purchase orders through a purchase order rollover request form. It entails us internally cleaning up the GL, which is the general ledger. There are several general ledgers by department, by expense. We're going to be moving quite a bit of expenses from GFU to HERS and HERS back to GFU. Right now, any purchases for supplies, that's going to, or any purchases for that matter, POs, that cutoff is in April. And folks wonder, why is it so soon that the year doesn't end until June? Well, we have to allow time to receive those items, and if they're not received by June 30th, those POs must be closed out and that expense carried forward to the next fiscal year. Unless it's going to be received within a couple of weeks of the new fiscal year, then we can approve the expense to make sure we capture it into the current fiscal year. You were going to add something to that.
No, I'm just trying to, you know, you're talking business, so I'm just trying to, like, to the regular person who doesn't deal with this every day, like, what does this mean? What does this mean to you?
But I thought that was in layman terms.
But I think there's a difference between layman's terms, and if I'm a coordinator, a faculty coordinator, if I need to order a printer, like, what does this mean? What does this mean to me?
To follow the timeline in which we must have items ordered and received.
And received, yeah.
Yes,
So I gotta pay
not
them
just
now,
ordered.
now, right?
Absolutely. If we have to know that it's going to be received before June 30th. Cancel. And we cannot purchase after
And so you need budgets don't just automatic, if I didn't get it by June 30th, it doesn't just automatically roll over to the next
that.
year.
It depends. That's a damn moment. I don't want to muddy the waters, but let's just say no, but there are exceptions if we can receive it within the first 2 weeks, but let's just say no, that.
Are there exceptions if they don't communicate with the business owner?
No exceptions, it's canceled. If we don't receive notification.
And another thing I was hoping you would say, I was trying to give you an easy layup, is that this puts a lot of pressure on the business office during this time that is greatly understaffed. And so we would prefer that people not wait till the last minute. Because if, I mean, you can imagine being someone in John's office, this is their high stress time of the year when they're trying to close out all these accounts. Nearly $100 billion
Plus,
worth of accounts, same number of people. And then if everyone just arbitrarily, the week before that April date, started spending all their money.
yeah, and that's something that we contend with, but we're going to be super judicial communicating on a regular basis this year to try and get folks to be a little more proactive. We know it was busiest of the year, got the midst of coming out of final exams, projects, and whatnot. And I want to reinforce, we're down another FTE, another 0.7 FTE, if you will. So it's going to be essentially me and Roxanne.
I mean, there's not a whole bunch of people.
No, there's not a whole bunch of people.
For an organization with $100 million budget, how many people are in the business office?
8. We should have 8 full-time people. We have 2 full-time people right now. We had 3 up until yesterday. So we have 2 full-time people in the net. So that's what we're continuing. So we don't want that last minute rush. We will not be able to facilitate it. Closing out, as Ricky said, about $10 million of funds. In addition to finalizing, and still working on the budget for the next year, or next fiscal year. So we're running tandem for 4 months, working on a budget and closing out.
And then the other piece is, everybody waits to the last minute to order, let's call it $10 million. How many people in shipping and receiving? Permanent? One. Right, so then, you know, so there's a bottleneck effect, and then people wonder why they don't get their items or it gets delivered to the wrong place. So please, do our colleagues a huge favor, a solid.
Yeah.
Let's not wait to the
Please,
last.
please, and I think everyone knows that we're pretty flexible, we're not obstructionists, we're not in the business of saying no, we're in the business of saying. Let's make it a little realistic, this is what the timeline is going to be, and we do work with folks, but just understand the challenges. Yeah, I'm sorry, you had it.
So now, just to make sure, and this is more for faculty, so, you know, when faculty is requesting something, they go directly to the dean. Now we know that then the dean will work with their VP, and then the VP will probably work with John with the VPAS in terms of budget. But in terms of a tracking system or something, because, you know, that's too many people in the process, so what guarantees us that the information was transferred, that there is like a track where it says, you know, this order came in first, second, third, we're working on this to follow up. Is there a system to follow up? Because, you know, if it's only you and Roxanne, I'm really concerned that when the workload gets really overwhelming, how do we faculty that are making the request know what's going on the other side of the house?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah, it can be tracked in terms of requisitions, it can be tracked in PeopleSoft. When it gets to the point to the reports that we're sending out now, I forget that we have the PO aging report, the PO aging report, and then there's the exception report. We've been sharing those have been pretty helpful. We don't have a report right now that says these are the POs that are in the queue. And is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and even prior to that, how do we know it got to the queue? I mean, I know we're all working collaboratively, but that requires that everybody communicates consistently and you know, as fast as they can. So we all know when we are in the process, because I know when you make requisitions, it goes into several steps and it, you know, and who is allowed to look at that requisition? Because technically faculty are not supposed to.
Yeah, the coordinator or admin who entered it can go in at any time to see the status. And
So that would be our dean's office.
Yes.
correct, and
So-
typically what happens if there's a hang up,
Okay,
they'll reach out to the business office and we'll be able to provide an answer.
okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll continue to send emails, but we need your help, we need your support, and I love questions because it allows us to unpack these bureaucracies that are certainly in place. And if you have suggestions, we're open to them. A couple things before we conclude. I see that folks for the next meeting are starting to show up. Hopefully everyone's seen the communication from the district about the vaccine requirements. We welcome our colleagues who were impacted by this back to campus. I look forward to seeing them. Women's History Month. I look around this room and there are, and on campus, there are amazing women who are leaders at every level of our organization. I would invite you all to join us in our annual event, something I learned about City College when I first arrived, and that is City College Women Absolutely Rock. So on March 8th, Marcel, you want to take it away to talk about?
So tomorrow morning, which is already March 8th, is City Women Rock over at Harry West Gym. They have a wonderful program set up for anyone who signs up. It's really geared towards women identified, identified students, but it is open to really anyone. And so please, if you know of any students that can attend, even for part of it, the registration link is still open, and you can go online and do that. And then tomorrow is also the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So right after City Women Rock ends, they will move over into a lunch that then spills over into the women's softball game and tennis, women's tennis. And there are they're giving away replica jerseys tomorrow for the first, I think, 100 folks that show up.
And I altered my travel schedule because I'm on an accreditation team, like literally I have to figure this out right now. I'm going to leave tomorrow, but I have to leave by 8:32 in order to get out of here. So I am going to come just for the morning, a couple seconds before I drive up to LA, because City Women's do rock, and I want to make sure we acknowledge the great work of the committee that is putting on this particular event and all of the other events that are taking place. There's a calendar that is listed there. Invite you all to be active in these events. To include number 9, which is the Enrollment Management Forum. I know there's been much debate, discussion about the date. There would not be a perfect time to do this, but enrollment is all of our focus as we have some work to do in cosmetology and other programs. So I invite every one of you to join us in that particular March 24th, Friday. I know it's before spring break. We needed to have this. That won't be the last, it may be the first ongoing discussions about those 4 pillars. You have a flyer in your handouts. We are willing to pay faculty, ESUs, as well as flex credit, either or. And then there are $500 up for grabs for students, as well as for classified professionals. So please join us on that day. We are looking to build a similar discussion across the district for our chairs, as we have a lot of work to do on really what does our college and our district look like going forward. So this is the first of many discussions. With that said, are there any announcements for the good of the order?
If I come tomorrow, will you do a cartwheel?
Absolutely. And if I fall down, I just need you to catch me tonight. If I fall down, I just need you to catch me. Yes. Thank you all. We'll see you same time, same place in 2 weeks. And for those of you who are here in the next meeting, it will start momentarily.